Hello and welcome to Katrina's Creations. This is a two-part tutorial on doing the C2C. This is part one, which will be dealing with the increases. Now a C2C stands for corner to corner. So you actually begin in one corner, you expand to the full width, and then you begin narrowing it back down again so that it comes back down on the other side. So it does form, in this case, a square. You can do triangles and rectangles as well, but we are going to begin with the basics. So let me lower the camera a little bit closer so you can see what this stitch looks like. So here is the stitch, and I am primarily a knitter. So when I first saw this pattern, I was very intimidated by it because you can see that the stitches go different directions. Here you can see that the double crochets are going this direction, but when you look at the next bunch right here, this cluster goes this direction. So they're made up, and here you can see it a little bit better. They are made up of clusters of double crochets going in different directions. So I was very intimidated by this until I started learning how it was done. So let's take a look, and we will begin with the tutorial. The beginning spot is this very first cluster here, and then it will expand out from there. So let's get started. I am using worsted weight yarn and a 5.5 millimeter crochet hook. The first thing you are going to do is chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So here are your 6 chain stitches. You're now going to wrap your thread, and you are going to do a double crochet into the third stitch. So it would be 1, 2, 3. So we will do a double crochet into this stitch. Then we will double crochet into the next 2 remaining stitches. So here you have your first cluster, your 3 double crochets, and you have this little loop, which is your chain up, but I kind of like to think of it as a buttonhole because it's what is going to connect your stitches together. So now we are going to chain another 6, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to turn our work. We're going to find that third chain stitch, and we're going to double crochet into it. So we now have 2 separate clusters. So how do they get connected? This is where that little loop, like I said, I call it a buttonhole because we're going to fasten them together using this. So we're going to take our crochet hook here and go through that little loop, grab the yarn, and then just slip stitch it. We've now connected it. So we are now going to chain 3. There's our chain up, or forming the next little buttonhole. And now we're going to double crochet 3 times into the loop. We now have row 2 done. This is row 1, and these 2 clusters form row 2. We've now gotten through the hardest part of the increases because establishing this pattern is the hardest. So from here on out, each row, we will begin the row with a chain of 6. Turn our work, count the 3rd chain up, and we're going to double crochet into that chain. There's 1, and then we're going to double crochet into the remaining 2 chains. There's our cluster, and we want to connect it to the others. So we are just simply going to find our little loop or buttonhole, put our crochet hook through it, grab the yarn, pull it through, and slip stitch. We've now buttoned it up. You can see why I call it a buttonhole. And we are now ready to go into this next loop. So we're going to chain 3. We only do the chain up we only chain up the 6 stitches at the beginning of a row. So after that, it's chain 3 and then 3 double crochets into your loop. And now we want to connect it to this section. So again, we have our little buttonhole. We just go through that loop, grab the yarn, pull it through as a slip stitch, and fasten it together. Okay, we're going to go to the next stitch. 1, 2, and 3, and we're going to go 3 double crochets. And here we have our 3 rows. We have row 1, row 2, and row 3. We're going to do one more row together. So we're going to begin our row with chaining 6, turn our work. We're going to double crochet into the 3rd chain and then the 2nd and the 1st chain. Here's our first cluster, and we're going to join it with our loop or buttonhole. And we just do the slip stitch. And now all the way across for these next clusters, we will be doing a chain 3 and then 3 double crochets into that loop. There's cluster number 2. We find our buttonhole, go through it, do a slip stitch to fasten it shut, 3 chain ups, There's our third cluster, and we're going to fasten it into our last one. So we're going to pull it through the loop and slip stitch, chain 3, and 3 double crochets. There you can see we have 4 rows, and each row gets 1 stitch wider. So we have 1, and then we went to 2, and then we have 3 clusters, and on row 4 we have 4 clusters. So you just continue in this method. Remember, each row, the first cluster, you are going to do a chain 6, and then you will begin your double crochets the third chain in. So that is how you do the increases. Now please come back next week and we will do the decreases. So that is the beginning of our C2C. Thanks for watching.